Sharon.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
While we get started, I bet he'll be on by the time we get rolling.
Okay.
So I'd like to call to order the subcommittee meeting and the committee of the whole. Roll call, please.
Mr. Nicholson, Chair.
Present.
Yes, and Mr. Ford.
Present.
Mr. Satterwhite.
Present.
Observing, Mr. Castellanos. And Ms. Gately. Present. Okay.
Great. Thank you. So the only agenda item we have is the policy manual. So we are picking up where we left off in section B, and we'll turn it over to Dorothy.
Okay, so let me share my screen, hopefully successfully. You don't see the right thing, do you?
I see school attorney.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All
It's
right.
a shame to start here without John.
If I may, Dorothy, if you, at the bottom right, if you, yep, it'll just make the text a little bit larger. There you go.
All right. Everyone can see that okay?
Yes.
All right. So there are two versions of BDG, the Lynn version and the MASC version. Unless there's something in the Lynn version that has changed from what it says, I would just keep the version. I wouldn't even look at the MASC version.
That's for school attorney.
Yep.
Did we already go over the ones before that?
Yep. We went over them. I hate to say it, before the pandemic started.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Last January, I think.
So what page is that? So that's page 48.
You know what? I don't have a document with page numbers. So
Yeah, I see it. It's all the way at the bottom left-hand corner where it says 48 of 104. So if people wanted to follow along, it's page 48. Do you see it, Dorothy?
No, the document that I'm showing you.
Yeah, there's a page number there.
Oh, got it. Yes, I do. Yes. Okay.
Jared, I agree. If there's no other school attorney, I think that it's important to be part of the policy.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'll just scroll up real quick. The other, the MASC version is pretty general. And yours is, and it's really meant for, in a way, for districts that have, that use an attorney differently than you guys do. A town that the school committee has its counsel kind of by the hour instead of, and using only periodically. So, if this is the way, if this fits what you do, then I would keep the Lynn version.
Okay. Jared, or is John?
Yeah, here. No. The other John.
Oh, yeah. So I just have a question, Jared. Maybe you can help me better understand this part of it. Do you see where it says 5 to represent and defend school committee members and school system employees in any legal action? I guess if you read the rest of it, it's not as though, because you know how they have grievances or other things that a school employee can file against, I guess, the committee or the city. I'm assuming because of the rest of that language, it wouldn't apply to that, so we should be fine.
Yeah, the second part there.
Okay.
I think that's right. Great. Any other questions?
Set on this one then?
Good.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Great.
So BDH would be the next one. So this policy is something that's in the Lynn manual and not in our reference manual. and not something that I tend to see in other districts that I've worked with. There's nothing in this policy, anything in this policy you would have the ability and the right to do even without the policy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like hiring you. You're a
Yeah,
consultant.
exactly. So I really, I mean, you could keep it if you want, but I really don't see the necessity of having it.
I'm wondering why this was added. John, was this during your time? There's no date.
No, I didn't, I don't recall it being, could have been in there for years.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't need it and no one has any objection, then it would just make our end shorter to take it out. But I don't feel strongly about this. If somebody else has a strong opinion,
I don't either.
Yeah, we're trying to clean it up. We should clean it up.
Okay, we will rescind that policy. So the next one, school committee meetings, has two versions. I'll show you the MASC version, then I'll scroll down to the Lynn version, and then we can go back and forth. School committee meetings, it talks about regular meetings, which are the ones, you know, regularly on your calendar, and then special meetings, which might be called, special meetings, a little bit different than emergency meetings. It doesn't really talk about emergency meetings at all in the policy. But it means things that, you know, reasons you might add a meeting to your calendar, essentially. The Lynn version has a couple things in it that some of them I think are somewhat dated. So I want to make sure that we look at that.
Our meetings are never at 7:30, so that's something that's not factual.
Okay. So that's, I mean, that's why I think that's the more general policy would be better than the more specific policy. You probably set a meeting calendar at some point during the year.
Normally in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think this is exactly why it's not helpful to be too specific, because
I would just like to point out, I like the school committee seeks to adjourn each meeting.
I don't want to be up in a meeting until 11 p.m.
No, haven't we been in here longer than 11 one time?
We did. That was one time.
We can amend it to 10.
But I think that my issue there is people might think that we don't take our job serious enough, that we have to have an end time. Obviously, our job ends when our business ends. So I wouldn't want to put a time in there. I don't know how you feel, Jared, about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Lynn one is the one that has the time. I mean, I'd be more inclined to go with the general one for exactly this reason. When you're too specific, you're apt to end up breaking your own policy. So.
I agree, Michael. I like the sound of that. I do, because whenever the business ends, it ends. You know, we have to carry it over.
Do we have to be specific, like in the Lynn one, where we talk about the unfinished business being brought onto the next agenda? That seems okay.
No, that would be something that you follow Robert's rules.
Yeah.
So, and you actually have a policy that says you follow Robert's rules, so you don't really need it in the policy.
Okay. Yeah, Jared, I'm fine with the MASC part.
Okay. Okay.
Did anybody else have anything there?
Yeah.
No, I'm good with that as well.
All right, thanks, John.
On the Lynn one, it mentions 24 hours notice, I think. If you go back to the Lynn one, it has to be 24 hours. But we always follow the 48 hours, correct?
Well, and in fact, that's the law.
Yeah.
This is why I say the Lynn one has things that I question, because, and I have a feeling the legal reference is not valid. And it's been a while since the chapter, since the open meeting law changed, and when the open meeting law changed, the chapter actually number changed. I think this is the old open meeting law reference.
We had the same issue on our job postings where we were posting the old MGL
Yeah.
or open meetings as well. So it's more than likely the same case here.
Yeah, because there's through this section, there's a lot of invalid MGL legal references. I think they're all at 39.
Dorothy, I was
All
just,
right, go ahead, Lorraine.
thank you, Dorothy. I was just wondering, in the school committee meetings BE, it doesn't say, you know, how much notification you have to give. So is that in that MGL 30A 1825? Is that?
Yes, it is. And actually, there's another policy coming up, which talks more about notification of school committee meetings.
Thank you. Good enough. Let's go with yours.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. So the next one then is BEBA. I'm not sure that, in fact, I don't believe you should have this policy at all, because I don't believe the open meeting law allows for informal meetings.
I agree.
So I think, you know, the
Yeah.
easiest thing to do is just say, this is not a valid policy and take it out.
And this
Agree
is
with
the
that.
reason why, Attorney Nicholson, we never want to be three together, right? Like whenever we go to an event and if we see us, we shouldn't be discussing anything.
That's right.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're okay with this one going away?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Executive sessions, the policies, the two versions, the MASC and the Lynn policies are the same except for the pronouns.
Okay.
Perfect.
So that makes it easy.
Great.
Okay. And here,
Did we already go over this?
oops, oh boy. Press the wrong button, now I'm all.
We should be on page 56.
Thank you.
BE.
I'm gonna go slowly enough that I don't goof it up and take more time.
EDA.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Here we go. So here is the policy about notification of school committee meetings. And the MASC version reflects the current open meeting law, as opposed to the Lynn version, which is somewhat dated.
Yeah, all right. That seems easy. Any objections to the MASC?
Nope.
Nope, amazing.
Great.
Okay. Just let me make sure I'm making the right notification notes to myself here. So there's two versions of this one, and I think you'll have to give some guidance on your local procedure and what makes sense.
You're on the agenda one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agenda preparation and dissemination.
I think yours, Mayor, is more what we do, because I believe the Patrick and his administration works with the mayor and Mary. So yeah, it might be a mixture of both.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, Mary, do you want to help us on how the agenda is eventually put together?
Well, I know Patrick, myself, and Terry work on the agenda together. Then it goes to the mayor's office on the Friday prior to our meeting on a Thursday to get approval from the mayor and Attorney Myhouse. And then after whatever changes are made or discussion, then the agenda gets posted the following Monday or Tuesday, at least 48 hours prior to the meeting.
And if we have, if the members are looking to add to the agenda, we normally go to you. That's what I do, right? Is that
correct?
Okay. And then you go to the mayor and Patrick.
Correct.
Okay.
Which I was always faithful about sending you guys an email asking you if you had agenda items, and the pandemic hit and it all seemed to just go back to what was going on right now with the pandemic. So I don't know if you want me to go back to that or wait till we're back to some kind of normalcy. I really don't know right now.
Dr. Tutwiler, is it helpful to have the three different parts work together? It sounds like it's efficient.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, typically by the Wednesday, Wednesday of the week prior to the meeting, before the pandemic, Mary would have agenda items from the committee members, and we'd sort of arrange them, add the school department additions, and then it's sent off to the mayor's office for approval, and John Myhouse. So I thought it worked well pre-pandemic. I don't see why we would change it.
Yeah, so that makes sense to me. It sounds like we had a system in place that people felt good with. There's no reason why we would need to change it. Does anybody have any other thoughts on that?
I think that the agenda preparation doesn't include the superintendent, so I think we would still need to change it up to include him in his office as well.
Okay.
You mean the Lynn policy doesn't include the superintendent in the preparation of the agenda?
Correct, but
Yeah.
yours does.
Yeah.
And yours is cleaner, to be honest. So maybe we can
Adopt
yours, but add the superintendent and the secretary of the school committee, confirm with the chair of the school committee, will arrange the order, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So the superintendent and secretary to the school committee?
Yeah, if Jared is fine with that, and the rest of the members, that's.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the difference would be, I mean, so the Lynn policy says written request for placement of items on the agenda for a Thursday meeting of the school committee must be in the secretary's office on the Tuesday the previous week. I think the way we had interpreted that was members' requests.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the MASC version sort of leaves it a little bit more open in that any school committee member, staff member, or citizen may suggest an item of business, but the inclusion is at the discretion of the chair. So, I mean, do members have a preference as to the ultimate authority on the agenda?
Maybe because that I feel like that happens already. Maybe we can the inclusion of as such items, however, will be at the discretion of the chair of the committee or the majority of the school committee, because I think that's how we do it now.
There's a 4.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
We always point out that a majority of the school committee can always override a decision of the chair.
So it kind of falls in place.
Yeah.
The only thing I see missing, and you covered it, Michael, is that from the Lynn version, we're talking to the secretary, which we do, and she talks to the superintendent and the chair of the school committee. So we just have to add the secretary somewhere in there. Secretary.
Yeah, in the first sentence, and then in the third paragraph, after the chair of the committee, we would just add or majority of the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jared, John Michaels here. Presently, the way it works, prior to it going out, the agenda comes to me for my, to look at, not for my approval, but just to make sure that any, legal questions are responded to.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I don't know that we need to put that in policy, but
I just wanted,
yeah.
I don't think it needs to go into policy.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good.
Are you okay with the suggestions, Jared, that I brought up?
Yeah, so it would be the MASC version, but we would add secretary to the first paragraph and add or a majority in the third paragraph. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yep. All right. Okay. So there's an order of business, which is your policy, and with BED, I'm gonna get my tongue twisted here, BEDB-E is an exhibit. That's the general order of business for your meetings. And if you're going to have this -E, you should definitely use your own. Ours is really just a model. There's no real reason you have to have your agenda format as part of your policy manual. It's really more an exhibit so that you know generally the order of business that you follow. So it's really up to you whether you want to keep that in there or not.
I mean, go ahead, Attorney Sauer.
Is there any other place in our policies where it states that we are to salute the flag at our meetings aside from here?
Yeah.
So, I think that's probably why it's there. Because it's not in your agenda format, but it doesn't mean we can't do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, ours is just here's a sample of an agenda format. There's, if you have this policy, you definitely want your own agenda format in it.
Yeah, let's keep it.
Okay.
I don't ever see fiscal matters like that. Do you ever see that in the order of business, Mary, or anywhere else?
Well, no, I think that would only be in there if there was actual fiscal matters to speak about.
Attorney Miles, would that include like donations when we take the recommendations of the superintendent to take money from like Staples or whatnot, or is that more budget?
Yeah. No, broadly construed, it would include it.
Okay.
But I think that Mary's right. It's just basically there. If it's going to be on the agenda, that's where it would fit in on the order of business. But it doesn't have, if there's nothing relative to fiscal matters, it's not included in the agenda.
Yeah, I think I've been seeing that more so in new business than fiscal matters. But Attorney Nicholson, what do you think?
I think you're right.
Do you think we need the order of business?
Do we? Sorry, are you asking if we need if we need the fiscal matters or
just in general policy for it? Again, I think that it could be there to make sure that we continue to salute the flag and to have the moment of silence. If it's a historical thing, and we obviously have an issue with religion and us and making these things, we have a policy to go back on and say, listen, we've been doing this for 34 years. That would help us, and obviously, I believe in a defense. But if it's there and it has this language, I don't mind keeping it.
Yeah, I'm good to keep it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah. You got it.
Great, thank you.
Just so next is agenda preparation and dissemination. would say, this is really a guideline for planning. So to me, this is more procedure than policy. And I would tend to say, don't include it in the policy manual.
It specifically says guidelines.
Yeah. Yeah, anybody have thoughts on that? That sounds fine to me.
Yeah, why take it out?
And I'm assuming, Dr. Tutwiler, you already have a process in place on this, or is this followed by internally?
I don't. This doesn't feel necessarily, I'm looking at it in my purview, right?
Check satisfaction and frustration levels with regards to both.
Yeah. That's what levels where complaints are handled. I mean, yes. I mean, I'm really trying to wrap my arms around like what all of this is. I would say in various parts of what we do, yes, there are processes to address some of the issues, but I don't. Yeah, number two, like I don't know that I've checked the satisfaction and frustration levels with regard to content and procedures of the school committee meetings. Like it just hasn't been something I've done.
Yeah, I mean, it may just be this is some interesting material, but not a policy,
Right.
Yeah, I would say that's the case.
Okay.
I think in the past there were people that were, am I muted? I think in the past there were people that used to yell out and argue a lot.
I'm sorry, the yellow what?
You mean? Chubby Fallon, I'm thinking of him, John. I don't know. Do you remember Chubby? He used to scream at people.
That's why they put in Robert's rules.
I know, that's probably what this is.
It was the Chubby Fallon clause.
Yeah.
Chubby Fallon.
Over my head, I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Okay. You're not
He used
as
to be a
old
ward
as
counselor, as well as a school committee member.
Oh, Jared, I'm okay with taking this out.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
man.
All right, thanks, John. All right,
Okay.
sounds good.
All right. So the next couple of policies are the MASC version and the Lynn version. So the quorum and voting method is covered. Let me see if I can explain this well. The quorum and voting method, this one really just covers quorum and voting method. And if you let me go down a couple policies to MASC's BEDF.
Page 68.
Yeah, I'm just afraid to jump around too much and then totally lose my place and take a lot of time trying to get back to it. But I do appreciate being able to know what page number to watch for. So I think BEDF covers a lot of what's in your BEDC. See if I can. So your BEDC starts out saying that the quorum for to call a meeting to order is 4, but the number less than 4 can adjourn. If you don't have a quorum, the only thing that you can do is adjourn. That's the only action you can take. That's Robert's rules.
Right.
And then the rest of the talks about the voting procedure, voice, roll call vote, no secret ballots, voice votes relayed by telephone or written votes by absent member are not valid.
That's not correct. I think we've allowed for that in the past.
What? No, I think what it's talking about is like Attorney Nicholson saying that Attorney Satterwhite votes this way.
Okay.
It's not remote participation. I don't believe that's what it's talking about. Or either that or it predates remote participation. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like the proxy content.
Yeah, exactly. And then, it says that if there's a voice vote and someone wants a show of hands, then a show of hands or a roll call vote, then you would ask for that to make sure you had the count correct, right? So that's what it covers. And I really think that the MASC is clear on that, about voting process. So I would suggest using the MASC version.
Which letter is that?
Anybody?
I'm sorry, Attorney Myhouse, it's BEDF is the MASC version.
Our version is multiple.
Your version is BEDC/BEDF.
Yeah, I see that.
John, Myhouse, did you have any reaction that you wanted to share?
The only thing, I'm just looking at BEDF, and it states a 2/3 vote would be required to suspend parliamentary rules of order, which basically goes contrary to Robert's rules, because that's absolutely correct if you try to change that at the same meeting. So if you put it on the agenda for a change, it's just majority. It's only comment I have to make about that.
So to clarify that the 2/3 vote would be required to suspend parliamentary rules of order.
At the meeting where
the suspension is taking place.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So we would add that to your version.
Yep.
And if you look, Attorney Nicholson, too, it looks like it's even saying, there's a requirement for a lot of things to be in the form of writing or in the form of an order, resolution, or recommendation. And there's deadlines and all that stuff. I don't believe that we do that.
You're saying you're in the Lynn.
In our Lynn, yep.
Yeah.
Page 67.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back to 67. That may be actually. Okay, I will go back to 67.
Could you use which letters those are also?
BEDA.
How did I lose 67? Just let me get to 67 and then I will do that.
Thank you.
Is this what you were looking at? Or am I in the wrong place?
That's your version, the one right above it.
Okay.
I'm surprised you don't have a box where you can put page numbers in to get to them quicker. Normally there's a box on it.
Oh, is this the one you're talking about then?
Yep.
Okay.
The letters?
It's BEDDA/BEDDB. And if this isn't current practice codified in 1992. I missed this when I was going through the document that I sent you, but I would recommend not having this.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of topic would be covered with our amended version of MASC.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree.
it would.
I agree.
Okay.
And there's no period, so is it continuing? So this the adoption of the MASCS, I mean SC would take away this one and the other two ahead of it, right? The rules of order in the
No, it wouldn't take away the rules of order, but it would take away the quorum and voting method one.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep.
So we're gonna go. So we would go with the
Yeah.
revised MASC version of this.
Right, and the revision is the 2/3 will be required to suspend parliamentary rules of order at the meeting at which the suspension is taking place.
All right.
And everything else is the same?
Yes,
Is that okay with you, Attorney Miles?
Yeah, it is. It's fine.
Okay. And everybody else good with that?
Good.
Great. Attorney
Okay.
Satterwhite?
Yep.
Okay. Excellent.
so just really, so going a little bit backwards, we're going to BEDD, which is rules of order. I would suggest taking the MASC version because it has an additional sentence. They both say you'll conduct your meetings in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order newly revised. But this one actually, we are gonna have to add Attorney Myhos's clarification to this one too. In accordance with Robert's rules, the committee may suspend parliamentary rules of order by a 2/3 vote. We'll add the same clause that we added in the other one.
Majority vote.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, don't we already have that covered in the voting method policy?
Yeah, but they're contradictory.
Yeah, so I think what Jared's trying to say is, do we need to have a rules of order if it's already in the other policy? Is that correct?
Well, I'm saying I understand why we need the first sentence, but the second sentence I thought we.
yep, you've got, so you don't need it in two places. I see
You
what you're
don't need
saying.
it,
So
right.
just keep the Lynn version without this extra sentence.
That's fine.
Right.
Yep, okay.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Gailey, I just want to pause for a second. If anybody has a question about anything, please feel free to speak up.
Sharon,
You have
just
to unmute
what we're doing with that rules of order, we're just leaving that way it is from Lynn.
Yeah, for the Robert's Rule of Order, we're just leaving it the way it is from Lynn. Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Great.
Sorry, Attorney Nicholson. I honestly like the wording of the first sentence in their version than ours. But that's just me as a lawyer.
Go back and look.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings. So,
Okay.
are people okay with taking the first sentence of the MASC version?
Yeah.
So just a slightly different wording.
Yeah, it's extremely similar, I would say.
Yep.
What are the letters on that?
That we're still talking about BEDT. So the two, do you want me to read the difference so Attorney Myhouse can hear?
I think he has it in front of him.
Okay.
Attorney Miles, do you see what Attorney Sauer had asked for? Instead of using the Lynn BEDD, he was suggesting we use the MASC BEDD, but just the first sentence.
That's fine. You mean the first sentence on the MASC version BEDD?
Yes.
Correct.
First sentence, first paragraph, however you, yeah.
Right.
And eliminate the second paragraph.
That's fine.
And now we're going to use the MASC.
Yes.
It's just, yeah, it's just the wording difference.
I can see that. It's a newly revised. That's the difference.
There's other things, but I'm not gonna get into it.
Except is clearer than otherwise, I guess. Okay, I think we're good there.
Okay, so we'll move on to minutes. Just let me let the screen catch up to where we are here. Almost there. So there's two versions of the minutes. It's BEDG, the Lynn version and the MASC version. The MASC version is more updated in keeping with the newer open meeting law. So I would suggest using that.
And Jared, if I can talk, and I believe that the MACS reflects what we kind of do. So our minutes say that Mary will sign them, but I believe they're signed by Patrick as a superintendent. Is that correct, Mary?
Yes, Patrick's name appears on those.
Okay. So I think that we're already following, it looks like, more so the minutes required under the open meeting law than our policy.
Yeah, this is another one where the legal reference is outdated. So, oops.
So is everyone okay doing the MASC version then?
Yep.
Terrific.
Do we need to have such a stringent production of the minutes? Is that in the law, Attorney Myhouse? Because it's talking about that we need them within the next three meetings or within 30 days.
Well, the law states are until such time that the need for secrecy is no longer valid.
That's for executive session minutes.
Right. Is that what we're talking about?
No. We're talking about general. Yeah.
Because it's saying that minutes of all meetings shall be created and approved in a timely manner, which is defined in regulations as within the next three meetings of the body or within 30 days. So, obviously with the
yes,
pandemic,
that's in regulation.
That's in regulation. Okay.
Yep.
But when the governor suspends the rules like he has, then there's no issues if it's late, correct?
If you know, under the circumstances with the executive order controls.
Okay. I'm fine with it, Attorney Nicholson, adopting the MASC.
Okay, just let me. So BEDG-R, the legal reference here is not, the information in this is correct. And the legal reference is not correct. And this is, to me, this is really more practice than policy, of which, you know, what's public record and what's not.
Wouldn't that be like a FOIA request, and then that's when the person that gets that request would determine if it's a public record or not?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
More like a procedure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine taking this out. It's not like we're determining what this rule is anyway, so.
Right.
Is that okay with you as well, John? Ford?
Yes, absolutely, great.
Yeah. So public participation at school committee meetings has been, we updated this in January of 2020 to reflect some of the court proceedings around the Natick cases and public participation. So I just want to make sure that you've seen the most up-to-date version. And I'm not sure you have, given that we haven't met since last January. So I'm wondering if we can put this one on hold and make sure that you're seeing the absolute latest and appropriate version before you say yay or nay.
So it's not the next one, the guidelines for public comment?
No, it's not the next one.
And I agree. I like how you highlighted and said that it should be comment, not participation, because it's really comments. We don't respond.
Right, right. So if you will bear with me on that one and we can look at that next time, I would appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're talking about BEDH?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, BEDH.
And this is we're stating that this is the current policy?
So when the policies that were sent to you previously, were sent to the committee previously, were sent before January of 2020, which is when MASC updated its policy to reflect the Natick case and the other things that came out. And I just want to make sure before the committee gives their approval to any policy that the one they have is the absolute most current version.
That's fine.
Attorney Miles, she's talking about the latest of the MASC, not the latest of the Lynn.
Yeah, because I see this is not the latest Lynn, the second paragraph of this Lynn School Committee is by citizens of Lynn. And it talks about citizens having the right to, I'm just reading it quickly. We've changed that so that even non-citizens have a right to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So then that probably wasn't provided.
This is part of the issue we're having in why we're going through this to begin with, is that the records about what the governing policy are not available. So we're gonna have to fix that.
Right.
Right. So we'll look at that next time.
Next time.
Yeah, that sounds good. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share on this?
It's an important policy, so I don't want to, review it in haste or without proper information. So
okay,
Good.
great.
And we can hold the BEDH-E, which is the guidelines for public comment as well, as they go together.
Okay.
Which brings us to BEDI, news media services at school committee meetings. Because everything's a public meeting, because I guess I would say, I don't think you need this policy.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's not because we're not thrilled to have the news media with us at any time they want to.
Exactly, they can. It's an open meeting, right? They can certainly be there.
It's like it's a mission statement, like one of our. So yeah, I agree that we don't need that.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay, great.
Okay, so the next policy then is BEDJ, broadcasting and taping of meetings. So there's no regulation around the time period that recordings of meetings are kept. So this would really be up to you. And I guess, I don't know if tape recorded is a term that would still be used or.
And I don't like the 2 years. That's not even, the best practices for keeping documents for attorneys or for banks and all that stuff is much longer in period of time. So I think the 2-year period is not enough for them to be kept safe.
Mary?
I can tell you that I have DVDs from when Tom Arabino was there that date back to 2010. So there are DVDs of all meetings that date back many years.
Well, if that's the case, we should strike the 2 years, right?
Yeah.
You should put some time limit in.
Yeah, normally it's 7 years for record.
Statute of limitations, right?
Yeah. Well, and like I say, there's no legal requirement that you tape your meeting or that you broadcast it. Most places do, right?
Yeah.
But there's no requirement that you do that. So there's no legal requirement around how long you have to keep something that you don't have to do, if that makes sense.
And I've known, I think prior to my being on the school committee, there was an issue with what the minutes stated and what actually took place at the meeting with regards, I think, to the sanctuary city thing that the previous committee did, and they had to go back and review the tapes. So, I think that it'd be great to have it just for reference for future members, and just to make sure that there's a backup to certain things. To be honest with you,
Is 7 a good number?
Attorney Myhouse or Attorney Nicholson?
Whatever you feel is reasonable.
Yeah, I think 7 seems reasonable.
Can I suggest changing tape recording to just should be recorded and recordings will be kept? Because then,
Yeah.
I don't even think there's tape recordings.
sometimes keeping up with technology is hard when you put it right in your policy.
And you know what would be cool, and I'm probably being a nerd now, Jared, but after that certain period of time, if we can, maybe donate those to the library, for maybe they have, a collection of those things or something like that. That's just what came to my mind when I was thinking about what's going to happen to it afterwards.
I'm curious to know how many DVD players will be around.
Not many. It doesn't have to be a part of the policy, but that's just
right.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
Okay, so we will move on to. So I'm going to make the title broadcasting and recording of meetings and change tape recorded to recorded and tapes to recordings.
Perfect.
And 2 to 7.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so.
Just a quick question. Are we using Lynn School Committee or School Committee in most of our policies, just to keep that consistent?
I'm not sure we've been consistent, to tell you the truth. If you want to tell me, then I can go back through and make sure we're consistent. Sometimes committees make sure the first time it appears in the policy that it says the full name, like Lynn School Committee, and then in the rest of the policy, it might just say committee or school committee.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's just Lynn School Committee, here and after known as a school committee. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. So the next one is BEE, Special Procedures for Conducting Hearings. And
Just keep one.
Both policy versions matched.
Oh,
Great.
I love that.
Ding ding.
So we'll just keep going.
yes.
Yes. Okay. So BE, I'm sorry, I'm so used to saying BE now. BG, school committee policy development. Let me see what I have for my note here. So, I mean, to me, the MASC version is a little bit clearer on the promulgation of policies. But I think you might want to keep, if you decide you like the MASC version, that you might want to keep from the Lynn version, the superintendent as a policy draft writer for the school committee shall seek counsel of the city, or, seek counsel.
Yeah, because I don't believe he goes to the city solicitor. I think he goes to Attorney Myhouse. And I'm not, is he the policy drafter? Is that how it's been?
Well, I guess, I mean, that's probably not the right wording, but to me, there's a lot of clarity in the MASC policy that's not in the Lynn policy, but you might want to take from the Lynn policy the idea that the policies are vetted through council.
Yeah, Attorney Nicholson, I wouldn't mind adding that part of our policy to the MASC and adopting theirs. It definitely is much cleaner. Dr. Tutwiler, have you been the policy draft writer for us?
Yeah, I don't think.
No, no.
We could take the MASC version and to the second paragraph, just add a sentence saying that the school committee shall consult with
council.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine.
Does it go right at the end?
Right.
Okay, just making a note. Okay.
Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. So the BGA policy development system, to me, again, this looks like procedure rather than policy. And interestingly, I don't believe you have policy BDDD or BDDF. You do not.
And it's stuff that I think already has to happen, like the superintendent having to function under the policy set by the school committee. That goes without saying, and I believe that's stated in our contract. So I don't think it's needed.
Yeah.
What letter is that?
It's BGA.
What? BGA?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. I agree with Michael. I don't think it's needed either.
Any other thoughts on that?
Good.
Great. All right. We'll take it.
And then the same would hold true BGA-R. Let me bring that one up. I'm not sure where this came from. It looks like it's taken directly out of another document. But it doesn't seem to apply. It just doesn't seem like it belongs at all.
Agreed.
It almost seems like.
Yeah, I'm lost by this as well. It might be from the city's charter.
That's kind of what it looks like.
It doesn't need to be here.
Yep. Okay.
Good.
Rid of it.
Like I need 3 hands here.
Thank you. You're doing a great job.
So now we're going to BGAA. Which, again, I think doesn't seem necessary.
When was the last time we got a policy request from a citizen or an employee?
No, that's got it.
This doesn't prevent them from doing it or making suggestions, right, Attorney Myhouse? It just doesn't need to be in writing.
I don't think it needs to be there. Exactly.
Okay.
It will be gone.
Policy adoption.
And then the next one is BGB, policy adoption. I'm losing my place. So there are 2 versions here. Go back to so the MAS or the Lynn version is pretty short. Basically says that you won't approve them at the same meeting they're introduced. There's more definition in the MASC of how policies get adopted.
I like the MA.
Yeah, MASC.
Yeah. Okay. I think it gives a little more information that's important, that you can, that sequence can be dispensed with if there's an emergency, or also that when policies become effective, specifies when they become effective. So it's clear policies under discussion are not in effect until they've actually been voted and approved.
So is the policy saying that, so to permit time for study, proposed policies will be presented as agenda items to the committee in the following sequence? Is this saying it needs to be a separate meeting for each step in that sequence?
Not necessarily. So a lot of times committees feel like they want to follow the 3 readings. We have to have 3 readings of a policy before we adopt it. You really don't. It can be distributed with the agenda and discussed. That can all be 1 meeting. Or you can consider that discussing it at the subcommittee level and then bringing it to the full committee is all 3 steps. It was on your subcommittee agenda, got discussed at subcommittee, and then brought to the full committee.
And I feel as though this is more so to have community input. So we all get the information at the same time. We discuss at some particular point in time, and then at that point we decide what's the best next step, because these policies are law. You know what I mean? They're policies in our district. So I don't mind that, and there's no binding that they take place at 3 different times, but they should, in my opinion, especially when they're vital policies that are going to make tremendous change to the district.
And the rationale that Attorney Satterwhite stated is exactly correct. That the community should know that the policies are going to be adopted.
Yeah, I'm in full support of giving people time to react and to analyze. I just want to make sure that we understand how to interpret this because we're going to be responsible for implementing it. What is for number? I don't understand number 3. An action item. One of the action items is discussion. How is that different from step 2?
It would just, an action item, a motion. There's a motion and then there's a chance for discussion, right?
Why is that? Why is that? Isn't that what 2 is? A discussion?
So I suppose you could. I mean, you could take the word discussion out. You'd be fine. Action item, adoption or rejection.
I'm fine with that, Jared.
Okay, I just when we have our subcommittee meeting, I want to be able to make sure that I'm reading this policy correctly. So this just means that if we're going to adopt a new policy, we want to it needs to be sent out in advance, and there needs to be time to discuss it, and there needs to be a separate action taken on it. And those can happen all on the same meeting, or they can happen in different meetings. It's at our discretion.
Dr. School.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so taking a discussion out of the number 3.
I'm fine with that.
Do we want to add tabling as an action item? I mean, I don't want to like handcuff us to follow a policy in discussing a policy that would contain our how we otherwise would handle something. Do we need to define action item at all? If an action could be, we could table it, we could refer it to another committee, we could.
That's a good. Yep.
Okay.
I think we should add that, Jared. Both those, please.
Jared, what are you going to do with the school committee may dispense with the above sequence to meet emergency conditions? Above sequence at the discretion of the committee.
Yeah, we can do that as well. Why don't we say? How about this for number 3? We could add tabling or refer to committee, and just add or other action item, and then we don't have to worry about having not having the full menu of action items. And then I'm also fine with that suggestion that John made to say that we would just leave it to our discretion.
You mean just say action item without any description?
So it says the next to the last paragraph says the school committee may dispense with the above sequence at the discretion of the committee. Get rid of to meet emergency conditions.
So the second to last paragraph, Dorothy
Right.
and Jared,
Yeah,
he wants to take the meet emergency conditions out.
And put at the discretion of the committee.
Correct.
So then the 2 changes would, for the first change in number 3, it would read action item, discussion, adoption, rejection, tabling, referring to another committee, or other action item. And then the second change would be the school committee may dispense with the above sequence at the discretion of the school committee.
So referring to another committee or a subcommittee?
A subcommittee.
We're going to refer everything to Chelsea School Committee.
Another committee. Tabling, referring to another committee or other action?
Right.
Got it.
Other action item or other action?
Other action.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah, either way.
Yeah, other actions makes better.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So policy review and evaluation manual accuracy check. We call this policy revision and review. That's the only difference between the 2 policies.
Oh,
Does anybody have a preference on the title?
We can stick with ours. It doesn't alter anything, right?
Yeah. Right. I'm fine with that.
Well, it's just the subject matter, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, this is BGC, if we didn't say the policy code.
And you guys, you want to keep it the way it currently says, policy review and evaluation manual accuracy check, as opposed to policy revision and review?
Go with policy revision and review.
So yeah, I guess the only question would be, will you get to the point where everything is online and you don't have physical manuals to be checking?
Yeah, I'm good with either one. So
Either one.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do the MASC one.
Okay. Okay. So here's another one that should be pretty easy. Just wording that where it's highlighted in yellow, this is BGD, where it's highlighted in yellow. In our policy manual, we say procedures rather than regulations, and school district rather than school system. I think we've already talked about changing everything to school district when it says system.
I guess procedures is more accurate because we're not like a regulatory body that has regulations, but I don't have strong feelings about it. Does anybody have any preference?
Procedures.
Okay, great.
Okay. That brings us to policy dissemination, which is BGE. The Lynn version is says the secretary of the school committee will establish a plan, an orderly plan for preserving and making accessible the policies adopted by the school committee and the administrative rules and regulations needed to put them into effect. The MASC version has a little bit more verbiage. Talks about.
Sorry, Mr.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is this because I remember you said that not every school committee has a secretary. Is this why it's more geared towards the superintendent being in charge of this?
In this case, it could be yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I definitely know when I got on 4 years ago, it was Tom that gave me all the policies, and I believe he maintained it. I don't believe the superintendent does.
Yeah.
I could be corrected by Mary or Dr. Cutwile or Attorney Myhouse if I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right.
So maybe we can,
Keep Lynn.
not just we can change superintendent to secretary of the school committee. So long as a secretary of the school committee is employed by the school committee, because at any point, if there's no need for a secretary of the school committee, I'm assuming the school committee can alter that, but then they would have to alter all these policies. But at this point, I know that Mary maintains and preserves these, and that's who you're working with anyways, right? Ms.
You
Preston?
could say the superintendent or designee, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it.
Ooh.
Attorney Myhouse?
Yeah, in the past, the secretary of the school committee always maintained the records.
Yeah.
So superintendent designee works also. So whatever the wish of the committee is.
Good.
That sounds good to me. So we're talking about MASC version of policy dissemination, add superintendent designee.
Put in parentheses there, Jared, like school committee secretary of the school committee. So we say specifically who it is, but if we don't have her again, then it would be someone we designate. Or is that just too much verbiage?
Well, generally, when you say superintendent or designee, it would be the superintendent who designates the person.
And that's what I think we want to keep a tradition and make sure it's Mary.
He doesn't.
Mhm. Well, even if other school committees have people who act as their secretary. They're just generally have a larger role, that they're also sort of the administrative assistant to the superintendent. So there would be someone who was playing Mary's role. Even I think you're safe saying the secretary to the school committee.
Okay.
All right, so it would be the MASC version of policy dissemination and put in secretary instead of superintendent.
Yeah.
Secretary of the school committee.
Yes. Just is secretary to the school committee or school committee secretary?
Mary?
Secretary of the Lynn School Committee. So secretary of the school
okay.
committee.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, all right, so it'd be policy dissemination, MASC, say secretary of the school committee. That last sentence there where it says the school committee's policy manual will be considered public record and will be available for inspection in the superintendent's office. I assume we're going to have this all electronically. Could we say that it's made publicly available?
You are required, even if you have it electronically, to keep one paper copy
So
somewhere in the district, and that's generally in the superintendent's office.
We'll make,
Yeah, so that's fine, but can we add then made publicly available so that we're posting the policy?
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
made publicly available for inspection, and then that's it? Or do we have to?
Well, I mean, I think Ms. Presser is saying that she'd like us to specify where the hard copy is going to be,
Okay.
but which is fine. But I'm suggesting we also say that we're going to post it.
Yep, okay.
It'll be with Mary.
I believe they have their own copy and I have my copy. So the superintendent's office has a copy and I have a copy.
And based off of the policy, Mary or whoever our secretary of the school committee will know that a copy needs to be in the superintendent's office, so that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully when we finish with this, there's going to be a master version that'll be clear what the policies are, and that will be easy for people to keep track of. But
Yes.
So I'm just looking at the school committee's official policy manual. So I'm thinking that's the paper one that's kept somewhere. So I think maybe another sentence that says the policy manual, whether it's at the end of the previous paragraph or somewhere, I think maybe it needs to be a whole separate sentence. Does that make sense?
What part?
yeah, I mean, I think I think you could do it that way. You could say a copy of which shall be, or you can make it a separate sentence.
So we'd be saying that last sentence would say inspection at the superintendent's office and the secretary of Lynn School Committee will have a copy.
I don't think that's what we're trying to. So Attorney Nicholson's trying to make it that our policies are available digitally or online. So he wants it to make it part of the policy.
I understand that, Michael, but I just wanted under here, it's the last line, it says that available for inspection and it only says the superintendent's office.
Yeah, and Mary would know that the superintendent's office would need a copy.
Okay, but she has one too, so they could go to her.
I don't know that I think it could be either one. I don't know. Lorraine, would you prefer it to be the secretary? Is that what you're?
No, I just think it should be both. It should match up with your topic sentence. Should always, your last line should be backing up what you're saying in the front.
Yeah, I think my understanding is that there's supposed to be, sorry, Brian, my understanding is that there's supposed to be one official copy, like there's one copy that's, yeah.
So
there's
if
an
you look at, I'm just looking at the second paragraph. Accessibility is to extend at least to all employees of the school district, to members of the committee, and to all persons in the community. Does that cover what you're trying to get at?
What are we?
No, I think what I'm suggesting, Ms. Presser, is that we explicitly say that we're going to post it online.
Yep.
And I can think you can make an argument that accessibility to extend to the public might include that, but what I'm suggesting is that we just explicitly state it to make it clear.
Mm-hmm.
And
could you put to all persons in the community through an online posting of the manual?
Well, then it says insofar as conveniently possible. I mean,
Well, we
we could, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Dr. Tutwiler?
Sure.
To obviously there's a lot of things going on in the district. One of the things that we're doing is the Welcome Center. Do you think that it would be fruitful if this official policy was there? Or do you feel more safer with it being in your office? Because that's where the parents are going to be going.
Easily accessible in the Welcome Center. I don't have a strong feeling about it. If someone shows up, we're gonna make it accessible to them.
Mary, do you have the policy manual? Mary?
Sorry, Lorraine. Yes, it's in my office.
So you should have the copy.
I do have a copy. And the superintendent's office has a copy.
Right.
So I think where we are, and let me know if anyone else has thoughts on this, is we're taking the MASC version of this. We're gonna loop in the secretary of the school committee appropriately, and then we're gonna somewhere explicitly state that this is gonna be posted online.
I'm fine with that.
That's good.
Great.
Okay. Got it. All right.
Awesome.
So we'll move on to BGF, suspension of policies. Which is, find my place here.
90.
Yeah, no, I'm in my notes.
Oh.
So the MASC version
It's consistent with Robert's rules.
is, okay. And it also specifies that once a policy is suspended, it should be reviewed expeditiously. Which makes sense, right? You don't just sort of suspend a policy and leave it out there suspended without reviewing what you want to do with it.
MASC.
Yeah, the suspension of the rules is usually just for the meeting that it's suspended at, but it doesn't hurt.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, in other words, well, if I'm reading this correctly, it's 2/3 vote of the committee to suspend the rules. It'll be
To suspend the particular, no, to suspend the particular policy in the manual.
This is about any policy in the district, not about the meeting rules.
All right. policy rules. That's fine. I like the MASC version rather than our version.
Okay, yeah, me too. Any other thoughts on that?
No.
Great. Great.
Which brings us to school committee staff communications, which is BHC. So, I mean, generally the purpose of this policy is to make sure that there's a clear path of communication. And this, I think this is a case where the Lynn version says secretary because you have that person, and the MASC version says superintendent because it doesn't exist in other places. So there's that's the only difference between the two policies. So it makes sense to keep it the way it is.
In Lynn?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's specific as to school visits and whatnot.
Yep.
Yep. One of the things that we did when I first got on was the superintendent was fine with a designated school provided email addresses for members that wanted them. And I don't see that that's, hold on a second. I don't see that it mentions that the whole part of the, hold on, is BHC and BHE the same thing or no?
BHC and BHD? No, they're two different policies.
Okay.
Yep.
So I was thinking that we were sticking with one and not going with the other. Okay, yeah, I'm fine with this.
Okay.
Great.
So now BHE. So this is in the MASC manual, and there's not an analogous one in Lynn. And it's really more about being careful about the use of electronic messaging in light of the open meeting law, and understanding also that what you do as school committee members in your official communications are public records.
It's
Go ahead, Attorney Satterwhite.
I think it's really referencing what's required of us, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's in here, but we've been shying away from just restating the law. Like, why is this a policy as opposed to training people on what the law requires?
So sometimes we create a policy because people are asking for one to clarify, because there may be issues in their district or with their committee. So that my guess is that this policy was promulgated or drafted or put in our manual so that committees that wanted to have that would have a policy to fall back on.
Right. Because it's just saying what the public records law and open meeting law requires with respect to electronic messaging, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's maybe a good idea for members to know that that's there explicitly. But if you've been doing well without it, then there's no reason you would need. There's no legal reason why you would need to adopt this. There's no requirement that you have a policy like this.
I don't have a strong feeling about it. Attorney Myhouse, does it look okay to you?
It's just for recitation of the law as it exists. So
We should use
it
it.
looks okay. I don't know if
Is that what you're saying?
Beg your pardon?
Thank you, Attorney Myhouse. Go ahead.
No, I thought you were directing a question to me. I didn't hear it.
Yeah, I heard what you had said. I was asking Member Ford if he had, because I think he had said something.
No, I think we should leave it in there. It's informative, nothing else, right?
In
And
this
if it's
case,
correct,
in this case, Attorney Nicholson, I think that this policy should be adopted by us.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
That brings us to BIA. New school committee member orientation. So there's a Lynn version, which talks about essentially orienting the new member. The MASC version, I would suggest using the MASC version because it specifically folds in some of the requirements around making sure that the new school committee members are provided with certain training, open meeting law training, public records training, conflict of interest training, and so forth.
And if I could, I don't know if you had the same experience as me, Attorney Nicholson and Ms. Gately. But when I was a member-elect, Tom did reach out to me, our secretary of the school committee, and invited me to a meeting. And it wasn't the superintendent's office. I don't think that I even spoke to Kathy that night, but Tom invited me, and he introduced me to the committee, and I liked that part of it. And I know that that's not going to be a part of the MASC policy. So maybe if we can still add some of these things that's specific to our district and what we want to do with our member elects, and obviously the rest, because Tom still did give me, the school committee policy manual, the open meeting law. I got a bag of goodies, and I believe Brian, you got the same thing, right?
Yeah, I got the same bag. Similar process, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think we could similarly put in this school committee here where it says superintendent for a couple of these.
Okay.
Like the school committee and secretary of the school committee shall assist each new member to understand the committee's functions, policies, and procedures of the committee as soon after the election as possible. I feel like that is kind of what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
Seems like a long time ago, Member Gately, we were oriented, right?
That orientation by the next
6
group.
years? Was it six years for you guys now?
Almost, yeah.
Long time ago, Jared.
6 years. I can't believe it's almost 4.
It flies.
Anything else in the new member orientation that anyone wants to keep? Or is the MASC policy broad enough that Mary will be able to do this stuff anyways?
MASC is.
Okay.
Yeah. Certainly. And, yes, I would say anything that you do now to orient new members would be covered under the umbrella of the MASC policy.
Great. So MASC, but add the secretary in there.
Yeah, and that you're talking about the second paragraph there, right?
Yep. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Of course, the superintendent may also assist, and I'm sure he would be happy to.
Would love to. I can't imagine not.
Okay, so that brings us to BIB. There is a Lynn version, not an MASC version. But the MASC version BIBA, which is the next policy, really covers the same thing. And there was a question, we had an outstanding question from last January about compensation that we'll need to get back to at some point.
Yeah, because I think we don't get a salary, we get a stipend. Is that correct, Attorney Myhouse?
That's correct.
And I don't
The
think,
city council has to vote on giving you a salary after you vote, you requested of them.
okay. I
The
believe,
city council.
yeah, Dan Cahill told me that they were in talks about doing this years and years ago, but it never transpired. But
Well, after they gave themselves a raise, they didn't have enough for us.
oh, that's what happened.
I've heard that said in other communities too.
They went from 10 to 25.
Yeah, we haven't met 10 yet. And that's,
But we also don't get reimbursements for anything. I don't think that's really a policy, because in order to do that, we still need the city's approval, right, Attorney Miles?
You need a city council vote.
Yeah. So I think this contradicts with what's actually happening now.
Can I ask if a member of the Lynn School Committee goes to, say, the MASC conference, the city council would have to vote to reimburse any expenses?
No, I'm talking about salary. City council has to vote on the salary. They can't limit the discretion of the school committee to attend a meeting such as that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. It's the third paragraph that I question here.
Is it a stipend or is it a salary, Attorney Myhouse?
It's not a salary because it's never been voted in by the city council as a salary. The difference is a stipend, and it does not apply to retirement. Once it's voted in as a salary, then the retirement would be applicable to it.
So, but the policy says, inasmuch as school committee members serve without pay.
By law, they serve without pay unless the city council approves pay for them, a salary.
Is it approved like on an annual basis then?
No, just one vote.
we're confused because we do get a stipend.
And we pay in to pension. I thought.
I don't believe so. You better check on that one, Michael.
Okay.
So it's saying here we don't get paid, but we do get a stipend.
No, I think we have an issue here about looking into the compensation, which we should do. And maybe Attorney Myhouse, you can lead the inquiry on that and circle back with Attorney Satterwhite. But so let's look into that. But I think that the question before us this year is about the committees, conferences and workshops. So let's table the compensation question, and then maybe are people okay with that?
Yeah.
So just as a reference, the policy that we were looking at before that we were questioning last January was BBBA.
Oh, BB.
Yeah. So looking at the MASC version of sort of covering the same topic, your BIB is entitled Member Development Opportunities. That BIBA for MASC is called Conferences and Workshops. Really covers the same thing.
I think it's important for us to have developmental opportunities, and I think that we've had that, especially since Dr. Tutwiler's been involved with bringing you, Ms. Presser, in for our retreats. At one point, I believe member Castellanos went on a retreat with Lynn Classical.
For the teachers, with the teachers union and Lynn Classical.
Who paid for that?
Union.
The union paid, okay.
Union paid for.
I went on that several years ago to Brooklyn.
And the union paid for that too as well, John?
Yes, yep.
So and John, Ford, you're the one that signs our warrants. Do you ever see reimbursements for any of the committee members?
No.
So
I just want to clarify where we're at, because the MASC policy doesn't say anything about reimbursement.
Let me scroll down to it. It actually does.
I was looking at the conference and workshop, BIBA.
Yeah, but that was the Lynn version. So here's the MASC version.
Okay, got it.
Well, what is the MASC version? What's the alphabetical?
It's BIBA. There's BIBA. There's a Lynn version and an MASC version.
It just says it will be reimbursed according to the travel reimbursement policy.
Yeah.
Is there a separate travel reimbursement policy?
Not that I know of.
So it
Professor,
sounds like it's. I'm thinking that you want to have something that encourages development, but is more silent on process. Does that make sense? More silent on budgeting for it.
Well, I mean, it's up to the committee. I think if the committee would like to come up with a policy on reimbursement of conferences, conventions, and workshops, then we could certainly do that. But my question, Ms. Presser, is does MASC have a policy about travel reimbursement when they reference the travel reimbursement policy?
My impression is that most districts have a travel reimbursement policy for staff. So that you could, and that's the travel reimbursement policy that's also followed for the committee.
So it's referencing their own internal HR policy as opposed to
yes,
school.
yes.
And
yes.
I believe those are by contract, Jarrett, because I know that we've been pushing for a change in certain travel reimbursements for the districts. So I'm not sure if there's an actual policy or if it's contract based.
Right.
Attorney Myhouse?
I know of no policy.
Okay. Dr. Tutwiler?
Yeah, just quickly, what Attorney Satterwhite is referring to is the mileage reimbursement.
Yes.
That's what we've discussed. It's in now uniform across the various units in the city. I don't know that there is a reimbursement, a contractual feature that talks about reimbursements for things like this, conferences and things of that nature. Typically, if the district is planning to participate in a conference and invites teachers or administrators or whatever to participate or go, then it's paid for.
It's paid for in the district budget, not by the person and reimbursed.
Correct. So
can we do the same thing, like maybe at the beginning of the year, if you see some things that might be beneficial to a school committee member, that you can meet with Kevin and kind of incorporate a budget within the school committee section of our budget. And if we use it, we use it. If we don't, we don't. But at least you'll have a better understanding, maybe with Kevin and Mary, what's out there. And we could, allocate maybe, a couple $1,000 to cover these expenses if a member so chooses to participate.
I personally think that would be a really good idea. And I would start with the MASC conference annually, whenever it's back to being in person.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It is paid for. We've gone to it and it's been paid for.
By
The last one wasn't. It wasn't paid for. There was a cost attached to it.
So maybe we just need to reword it, Attorney Nicholson, to say that what I just described, maybe as a method of
Yeah. I think so. I think we can just. I think so. It says in number 2, funds for participation in such meetings will be budgeted for on an annual basis, which I think is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think
And that typically that's how committees handle it. That it's, there's something budgeted for.
We do have,
I think the difference. Go ahead, Kaylee.
we do have it on our school committee page on the budget. We could ask for that to be put there, like someone.
Right. So I think then the change potentially then to this is to use MASC version, but instead of the accounting being to reimburse people, that the district would
Yes.
pay for it directly.
yes.
Are people okay? Are people okay with that approach?
Yes.
Yes, so we'll just X out number 3.
Yeah, I was going to make the same suggestion.
Yeah. Right. Great.
So just to recap, so if we look at BI, let me scroll back. I think if you have BIBA that you can rescind BIB
And BIBA.
and the Lynn version and take the MASC version of BIBA.
Subtracting paragraph 3. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. I think to spend any more time on BIB or to leave it in there is just duplicative to BIBA.
Great.
That makes sense?
I agree.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
And I think we're on BID now, and we're going to have the same issues with compensation. So this should be tabled with the other one, Attorney Nicholson.
No, I think we can get rid of BIB.
Oh, BID.
Oh, BID. Sorry.
I'm ahead. Sorry.
Right there.
Yeah.
The next thing I have is BED. Ed.
I think you're probably right. BID is probably one to hold.
Because it's weird.
Go ahead, Attorney Satterwhite.
It's not specific to our city either. It's weird. It's talking about any city shall be eligible. No member of a school committee in any city shall be eligible. Why does it have to?
To be eligible for the position of teacher or superintendent of public schools therein.
No member of a school committee in any city.
Michael, if you take a look at BID, the Mass Association School Committee version, it states the law, school committee shall serve without compensation.
Yeah.
Except that a member of a school committee of a city or town may be compensated for their services by a majority vote of the city council.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what we would like to do, my understanding is that Ms. Presser is suggesting that we table this so that to give you a chance, Attorney Myhouse, to look in what the current state of what the current state is for Lynn.
Fine.
Yeah.
Is that right, Ms. Presser?
Yes.
Myhouse, does that work for you?
It works for me, yes.
Great.
So that
So
brings
if
us.
anybody has anything on that, feel free to reach out to Attorney Myhouse. Yeah.
So that brings us to BIE, which Lynn has and MASC does not.
I don't think we have insurance.
Yeah.
This is not something that I'm familiar with. Attorney Miles, do the school committee members have insurance?
No. No, but any action in there as a public official is duty bound by the city to compensate you for any loss as long as you're acting in your capacity. So it does, even though there's no insurance.
It's because the city's self-insured.
Basically, yes.
Okay, so we should keep it.
No, I think that, no, I think that,
Yeah, I don't think it's needed either.
Yeah,
I
Ms.
don't
Gailey,
think it's needed.
we can
And it-
strike it because we're otherwise covered is what Attorney Myhouse is saying.
Right, and 3 and 4 don't cover school committee members anyway.
Yeah.
That's correct.
All right, so everybody okay with that, striking that?
Yeah,
Great.
done.
Okay. That brings us to policy BJ, school committee legislative program, and the MASC and the Lynn versions of the policies match.
Okay.
I think we get all of our information from you guys anyways.
And that brings, so let's go ahead and keep that one.
I agree.
Okay. Brings us to BK, school committee memberships, which policies match.
Keep it.
Okay. And brings us to the final policy in section B, liaison with school committee associations. This is only Lynn's policy, but it actually kind of does a nice job of defining the role of liaison. So I would be tempted to say you should leave it in place.
Liaison with school committee associations meeting with associations like MASC. That's what this is saying?
Yes. But it could also mean, I mean, to me, it could also mean if someone is a liaison to another organization, that might be another Lynn organization that the school committee wants to keep a connection to.
Because I know in our functions now, I don't think we do this because if Mr. Castellano is on a committee, he's not on it as a school committee member. He's on there as a social worker. I'm normally on it as an attorney, or Jared or as an attorney. I don't. So we would have to have a meeting. We would have to have a majority of the people agree for one of our members to be a part of an outside association representing the school committee.
So it's not uncommon for school committees to have liaisons to groups like if you have an ed fund or maybe a liaison to.
And I thought the secretary of the school committee did that in the past. I think Tom would be on a couple committees representing the school committee, if I'm correct.
Okay.
Okay. And can we correct liaison? The spelling.
Yeah.
Attorney Myhouse, is that correct? That in the past, Tom was on some committees on our behalf?
Yeah, he'd be representative of the school committee at various citizen groups. So he did that.
Yeah. Okay.
Does Mary do that? Mary?
No, I don't, Lorraine.
Okay.
You took some things out of what was Tom's contract in mind. So I don't know if it's still in there. I'd have to look at my contract. But no, I don't.
But does this mean like in the past you used to go with Patrick to different school events?
I don't think that this has to do with outside
Okay.
committees.
Also, the title of this policy doesn't seem to match with the substance.
No.
Yeah, you're right.
I honestly don't like it, and I think that if we wanted to do this, we probably wouldn't need to have a policy because it still needs to go through the proper mechanism of getting approval of the full committee.
Correct.
So I think that this doesn't really it's not applicable, and I don't think it helps.
Let's cut it.
All right.
Member 4, is that okay with you?
Good.
Great.
It's gone. That's the end of section B.
Excellent. Nice work. I think that's fortuitous timing as well, because we were trying to keep these to 2 hours. So does anybody have any thoughts or questions? And now would be a good time. If there's a couple of things we were going to follow up on, so I just want to make sure that everybody is sort of on the same page for next steps. Is there anything we want to clarify?
I think it's minimal, and today was very productive, and we were able to get through a lot of policies. But I think that right now we're just gonna. I think Attorney Myhouse knows exactly what to look for just to get clarification, and those can be cleared up pretty easily. And then the last thing are the two policies that Ms. Presser is going to bring us that were prepared in January of 2020 that she wants us to be able to have and review before we discuss those two things. So I'm fine with that.
Attorney Sadoway, you're talking about relative to what I'm going to do is a question relative to the pay.
Correct. Compensation, whether it's pay or a stipend or whatnot.
And also pension, right?
Yeah, pension.
Well, that's part and parcel, but we just want to confirm that.
Yeah.
Great. So I imagine we will pick up with those if they're ready to be presented next time, or if not, we'll dive into C, and then maybe Ms. Presser can. Do you think you'd be getting as D to follow?
Yes, I would like to. I've gone through D. I think it might make sense the way I went through the discipline policies with Attorney Gallo before we came to you. Section D is fiscal management. I think it might make sense for me to talk to whoever the appropriate person is before bringing them to you and making sure that that person and I are in line with what we're presenting. And then just, continuing on, Section E is, I looked at that a little bit with Attorney Gallo. It actually has a number of, I think, different people involved in those policies. So I might want to maybe talk with Mary a little bit about the right people to coordinate with and sort of continue on that process that we were following with Attorney Gallo of touching base with the appropriate administrator before I bring things to you, might help the process move a little bit more quickly.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm sure that Mary would be happy to connect you with the financial for E, and then for anybody else for any other sections. Sorry, for D, the fiscal people for D and anyone else. So that makes total sense. Yeah. Does this work for people doing the off Thursday? Should we do that again in February? Yes. Okay.
I like that. Again, we're respecting the 2 hours too. That's. I know we have a lot to do, but I appreciate that aspect of it, especially having kids. You know that, Jared.
Absolutely.
I have a dog child. Just for the record, my dog is 1 year old.
He looks adorable, Brian.
I thought you were going to say he looks just like you. I was going to say Jared.
If we're going to do this, we're going to try to do it every month, but I think that we will run into February vacation in February. Would people rather do earlier, or we could also do the first week in March, maybe the first Thursday in March?
And
Can I just lobby for March and let me run and get my calendar?
Yeah.
It would be March 4th.
What does the schedule look like for March? We meet on the 18th as well, regularly.
You'll be meeting on the 11th and the 25th. And Jared's asking for March 4th. So you'd have a meeting on the 4th, the 11th, and the 25th.
What is?
I already have a commitment on the 4th.
Okay.
The 18th, or do you want to try?
Yeah, I could do the 18th.
I know the February 18th is school vacation week. It's not a problem for me to meet that week. How do you,
Will you have enough time to meet with the financial guy to get?
well, I have section C all ready to go.
Still have C to go.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So if I, and if I have time to,
Okay.
I don't think anyone's going away.
Well,
What was that?
I don't think anyone's going away February vacation.
Yeah, it's
most
probably-
years I wouldn't say, why not school vacation week, but this year is a little bit different.
I would just ask Ms. Pressler that you have a beach background next time if we're going to meet in February, please.
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, really nice one, like.
Bring her spring break back on.
All right, so that works for everybody? The
February 18th?
Okay.
Right. All right. Motion to adjourn would be
Motion
in order.
to adjourn to go to BED.
So
All
what?
right. That's a second from John.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Meeting adjourned.